We have a habit of obsessing about the destination. And when you obsess about the destination, you miss the journey. And the journey is the only thing you have. The journey is with you always. The destination is a mirage. You get there, you tarry a few minutes, and then you're off someplace else. So you can never be sure that you'll accomplish your goal. So the benefit of setting a goal and trying your level best to achieve it are the learning and growth that happen in you and to you as you try your level best to achieve the goal. If you actually achieve the goal, that's a bonus. Be grateful. If you don't achieve the goal, the learning and growth have already happened, so you're ahead of the game.
So, hello everyone, this is Kristina Ma, nd-Lakhiani, co-founder of Mindvalley. And now, today, this is my first episode of pre-recorded honest conversation, so bear with me, I hope it will work well. Unfortunately, I don't see your feedback, so I won't be able to react to how people react to what we're talking about, but I think we'll figure it out. So I have an amazing guest today. I'm really honored and happy to have this guest with me today for my first installment of pre-recorded honest conversations. I promise they will still be honest and spontaneous. So my today's guest is actually one of our authors and speakers who has been on Mindvalley stage quite a few times and is one of our published authors, but that is not as important as the fact that he is probably my personal role model and teacher when it comes to happiness. And those who know me know that I started my career as an author in happiness. So I'm honored, excited, and a little bit nervous actually about this conversation. So my today's guest is Srikumar Rao. Hello, welcome.
Hello, Kristina. My pleasure. And you're absolutely not nervous.
I am a little bit because, you know, it's, I refer to you in my speeches actually, and I've learned a lot from you, but I want to ask one thing. Why happiness? Because I understand that you teach actually business students, people who are very pragmatic, skeptical, for whom happiness maybe is this fluffy little thing, unicorns and rainbows, and maybe irrelevant because, you know, we are, on one side, we all understand that happiness is important, but on the other side, a lot of people think like, yeah, it is important, but, you know, it's irrelevant. It's not as important as money or as business. How did you end up teaching that and talking about that?
Well, before we do that, Kristina, let's talk about what happiness is and what do you understand by happiness. In the West, we talk about happiness in a very cavalier fashion, and we frequently confuse happiness with pleasure. So we talk in terms of, you know, I read a good book, I'm happy. Or I saw a wonderful movie and I'm happy. I went out for dinner with friends and it was great, so I'm happy. That's not what I'm really talking about. I'm talking about a profound sense of well-being, which you're completely anchored in. You know, the being radiantly alive, not alive, but radiantly alive, where you're bursting with the sense of wellness at being who you are, at doing what you do. And the sense of being okay is so strong that you could almost go down to your knees in involuntary gratitude at the tremendous good fortune that has been bestowed on you. I'm talking about being anchored in this feeling, this knowledge that you are okay, you have always been okay, and you always will be okay. Now, you are in the human condition, and as long as you're in the human condition, stuff will happen. There will be serious illness and death. There will be relationship problems. There will be financial setbacks. There will be career reverses. All of these are part of being in the human condition. And as and when these things occur, you will deal with them as appropriate, but you will deal with them from the space of I am okay, have always been okay, and will always be okay. There's a difference. That is the ideal, the model, if you will, that I would like on. I'm not talking about transitory pleasures, but I'm talking about this very deep underlying knowledge that you're anchored in.
So so philosophically speaking, it is true right now to everyone, no matter where you are.
Yeah.
Philosophically speaking, we are all okay and we'll be okay. So what is there to learn then? Because a lot of people would say, you know, how can I even try to learn it, or I
This
don't know,
is not
train the muscle?
something. This is not something to be learned,
Mm-hmm.
Kristina. This is something to be experienced. This
Aha.
is not something that you can intellectually. Oh, you know, I know I can be happy anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But is that your experience of life? And
Mm-hmm.
for most persons, it's not. Most persons, it's an experience of, oh my God, all of these things are happening to me, these terrible things. There's coronavirus and I'm locked in and I'm separated from my family and I want to travel and I can't travel. You know, my business is going down the tubes because the customers are staying away. And oh, it's a terrible situation. That's the experience that most people have.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying that you can change that. Yes, all of these things could be happening, but your experience could still be, it's a beautiful world in which all of this stuff is happening.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm going to make it easy for your listeners, Kristina. I'll tell you, it's extremely easy for a person to have a terrific day every day. Do you think that your listeners would like to know how to do that?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
It sounds simplistic, but this is really very profound. The way to have a terrific day every day is to get up in the morning and decide that you are going to have a terrific day. Now, as you go through the day, and if you're smart, you'll figure it out, there will be pieces dropping from the sky. Shit happens.
Yeah.
So what you do is you decide in advance that I'm going to have a terrific day. Shit is going to happen on this terrific day. And I'm going to spend 2 hours of my terrific day cleaning up the pieces that falls from the sky. And I'll do it while I'm having a terrific day. So cleaning up the shit that happens as part of your terrific day, it's no big deal. And you've accepted that in advance and you're prepared for it.
Ah,
So
that's
you have it. It's really as simple as that. But you have to consciously accept the worldview that makes this happen. And you have to work to make it part of your worldview. But when you do that, you will. Most of us go through life insisting that the universe unfold the way in which you would like it to unfold. So you demand that the universe give you what you want. Your business should be flourishing. Your revenue should be increasing. Your earnings should be increasing more than revenues. Your relatives should not bother you. Your customers should have no complaints. So we have so many demands of the universe. And the universe does not unfold the way in which you want it to. So where did you get the notion that you can only be happy if the universe unfolds the way you want it to? It's crazy. The universe unfolds the way that it unfolds, and what you do is you not only accept it, but you embrace it, because that does not have to prevent you from being radiantly alive. And the moment you recognize that you're not dependent on the universe for your inner well-being, it's liberation. It's like a light switch being flicked. And no matter what the circumstances are, you are tremendously fulfilled, radiantly alive.
How do you learn this? Because it's all good when you are in a good place, but when when the shit does fall from the sky, usually it's very hard to pull yourself back into that. And
Yeah, but that's
people
exactly.
often refuse to do that because they say, no, but I have to deal with my problems. I can't close my eyes and pretend that everything is fine.
Nobody's saying you close your eyes and pretend they don't exist. Of course, you have to deal with your problems. What is important is what is the space from which you deal with the problems. Do you deal with the problems in the space of, oh my God, this is terrible, I'm suffering, I cannot bear this? Or do you deal with it as from the space of, yeah, this is a problem I have to take care of and let me see what I can do. You know, if you read Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, the reason he started off is he started wondering, why is it that under extremely adverse circumstances, and you can imagine few more extremely adverse situations than being in a Nazi concentration camp, Yet even in those situations, they found some people flourish and other people fall to pieces. And he
Mm-hmm.
started wondering, why is it that under such enormously adverse circumstances, some people can flourish and others can't? So what I'm saying is, you don't have much control over the adverse situations in which you will find yourself, but you can determine which is the emotional domain you occupy as you deal with that. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying you shut up and you don't deal with that. That's silly. You do deal with it. But I am talking about the emotional domain you occupy as you deal with it is important. And that's what you should put your focus on, because you cannot focus on changing the universe. The universe will unfold the way it does. In
Mm-hmm.
my courses, I have a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
In your life, there is going to be a tsunami. It's not a question of will there be one, simply a question of when will the tsunami hit you.
Yeah.
When the tsunami hits you, it's a wonderful thing to be able to surf on it and look around and say, isn't this a beautiful experience? As opposed to getting drowned by the tsunami.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is you can't learn to surf when the tsunami hits you. So if you want to surf when the tsunami hits you, it's a very good idea to start surfing on the 2-foot waves. And if you become good at surfing on the 2-foot waves, then when the tsunami hits you, you can surf and say, isn't this a wonderful experience?
Mm-hmm.
And all of my work, all of my courses, books, projects, they're all designed to help people start to become pretty good surfers at the 2-foot waves. And then when the tsunami hits, they've got a reasonable chance of saying, isn't this wonderful?
That's cool.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's really beautiful. I was I was just today I heard an interesting analogy as well. Is that you can certainly learn to swim when you're thrown in the water, but it's easier to first learn and then be thrown in the water. So
Yes.
it reminds me, and it's good that it's interesting that this message came twice to me today in one day. So what I want to ask: do you have any techniques? So because we a lot of people, when they go to learn about happiness, they imagine that we are talking about rose-tinted glasses and refocusing or changing your state. But I want to refer to an idea that I heard from Brene Brown. She's one of the famous now TED speakers. She said that when people fall down face flat on the ground, there is this moment where you are there, and we often talk about bouncing back, about how people come up, how they deal with that, but we don't talk about the moment when they are down on the ground. So in your teachings, do you, how much attention do you put to that? Because it's easy, as I said, to be happy if everything is okay and your waves are maybe just 2 feet. But what do you do in the moment when you are not feeling okay? Is there any technique, anything to remember so that you don't stay there in that, on face flat on the ground?
Absolutely. In fact, a good deal of what I teach, Kristina, is how do you deal with a situation like that?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you examine your own life, anytime anything happens with you, you very quickly label it in your head, this is good or this is bad, almost instantaneously.
Yeah.
And in particular, I invite you to think about something that happened in the past that at the time it happened, you thought, oh, this is bad. But now you can look back upon it and say, hey, that wasn't so bad after all, or maybe even that was good. Can you recall such instances?
Well, I guess I'm in the process of one of them. The way I reacted to the lockdown in Malaysia was, I'm done. I have to move out of here, and now I'm in Estonia. So I can't label it as good or bad just yet. But I know it brought along a really big change, and we'll see where it goes.
There are numerous instances. I was speaking before the Global Executive Summit of the Entrepreneurs Organization when somebody in the back got up and started making a commotion. So I recognized him, and he said, Professor Rao, I've got a perfect example for you. He was a graduate from one of India's top engineering colleges. He came out, graduated from the IIT, got a degree from Stanford, got a job with a high-tech company, was looking forward to building his career. And his friends got a job with other high-tech companies, so they were looking forward to building their careers together. But he had an immigration problem, as a result of which he had to leave the country. And he was devastated. Among other things, he had student debt. And when you have student debt in dollars and you're earning in rupees, you're basically screwed.
Yeah.
So he thought his life was over. This is it. But he said, Professor Rao, as a result of being forced out of the country, I met this beautiful woman who's now my wife. I teamed up with two of my engineering school buddies and started a company, and it's going gangbusters. All my clients are in America. I come to America at least 6 times a year, and I have a picture perfect life. And none of this would have happened if I had not been forced to leave the country.
Mm.
So if something happened to you in the past that at the time it happened was terrible, but you can now look upon it and say, hey, that wasn't terrible after all, or even if it was good. Why are you in a hurry to label anything that happens to you bad? Can you imagine how in X years it could turn out to be good? Is it possible?
Mm.
Just asking yourself that question will move you to a different emotional domain. And then if you ask yourself the next question, is there anything I can proactively do to actually make it good?
Mm-hmm.
And you move from the realm of despair to the realm of possibility.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do is I help train people to recognize that they label things.
Mm-hmm.
Suffering does not happen when an event occurs, Kristina. Suffering happens the moment you decide this is terrible.
Mm.
Coronavirus has locked you in. You've got a lot of spare time and different ways to exploit your time.
Yeah.
But coronavirus locks you in and says, oh my God, this is bad. What am I going to do? I want to go on vacations. I can't go on vacation. This is terrible. And the moment you say that is terrible, at that instant, suffering begins. Suffering doesn't begin when, coronavirus hits and you're quarantined. It begins the moment you say this is bad, this is terrible. What happens if you never say this is bad, this is terrible? Suffering never begins. So going back to Brené Brown, you're never down. Yeah, some stuff you want happen, but you turn so fast. It's in the blink of an eye. You're genuinely never down. In my talks, I talk about cultivating not resilience, but extreme resilience. Here's the difference.
Yeah.
Resilience is when you bounce back from adversity, and that's a good thing. But resilience means that there is adversity and you bounce back. So there is a portion of time where, like as Brené Brown says, you're on the ground. What I advocate is extreme resilience. And in extreme resilience, you bounce back so quickly that an external observer looking at you might not even know that you had suffered an adverse event. And the way you get extreme resilience is don't label things bad, just label it this happened. So if you label it this happened, then the automatic question is, where do I go from here? This is a learnable skill, Kristina. It's very learnable. You have to actually decide it's important and I'm going to implement it in my life. And when you do that, you are no longer down. So you don't have to think about the time when you're down because you're never down and you're genuinely never down. You're not suppressing things. You're not ignoring things. You're coping with it in a different manner because you're taking all of the energy that would normally have gone into self-pity and transmuting it into where do I go now? Here's how you can think about it, Kristina. Your awareness is like a flashlight. Let me repeat that. Your awareness is like a flashlight. What does a flashlight do? It shines whatever you shine it on. Shine it on the floor, it lights up the floor. Shine it on the ceiling, it illuminates the ceiling. Now, here's what I want you to do, Kristina. Right this moment, take the flashlight of your awareness and shine it on the chair in which you are sitting.
Yeah.
So the moment you take the flashlight of your awareness and shine it on the seat in which you're sitting, you become aware of the pressure of your buttocks on the chair. You can feel the chair against the back of your thighs, fabric or leather or whatever it may, correct?
Yeah.
1 minute ago, you were not aware of any of this.
True.
Now you are. Why is that? Because you've taken the flashlight of your awareness and you shone it on your seat. So our awareness is like a flashlight. And where do we shine this flashlight on? We shine it upon all the things that we think are wrong in our life.
Mm-hmm.
We shine it on the problems that we have. We shine it on the fact that we can't move out, that we're in quarantine, we can't travel because there are no flights.
Mm-hmm.
And we completely ignore the 40, 50, or 200 things which are pretty damn good about our lives right now.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have to bother about whether you're going to have dinner tonight? Do you
Yeah.
have a bed to sleep in? Do you have a roof over your head? You recognize that any of these is a big problem in a big chunk of the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you are incredibly privileged, but you don't feel incredibly privileged because of where you shine the flashlight of your awareness. So shine the flashlight of your awareness on the many ways in which you're truly incredibly blessed,
Mm-hmm.
and school yourself so that every time you have a problem, and you have a problem because you want the universe to unfold in a particular manner, and the universe is unfolding in a different manner.
Yeah.
So you recognize that and say, this is a situation I have to deal with, but I will deal with it from the space of I'm an incredibly fulfilled, radiantly alive human being who has a situation that she has to take care of.
Mm-hmm.
So I will take care of it, but I will take care of it from the space of I'm an incredibly fulfilled human being.
Mm-hmm.
And when
Thank
you
you for
do that,
saying
you will
that.
find you're more effective.
Thank you for saying that, because a lot of the people criticize, this whole idea of focusing on why you're blessed, exactly because of that. They say, but I want to look at what is wrong so that I can improve it. But I really like especially the closing of what you were saying, that, it matters from which space you're dealing with your problem.
Exactly. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you look at things and say, this is how I would like things to be. And it's perfectly okay. In fact, it's incumbent on you. If you see things are wrong, you will try to set it the way you want. You may or may not succeed. You have no control. But the emotional domain, the space from which you do it, that is important. That is the focus of all of my classes, all of my projects, all of my coaching clients. That's what we work on.
So we'll get back to that space. I want to ask another question, which has been on my mind since we started talking, because that's a little bit of a hard thing. So you say we should not expect the universe to unfold the way, or to unfold our life the way we want. And this whole idea of expectations, because I've heard this idea that expectations are a sure path to disappointment, that expectations are actually the reason why we feel unhappy. So how do you untrain yourself from having expectations? Because whether we like it or not, we have our hopes, we want things to be in a certain way, and then when it doesn't happen, of course it comes with disappointment.
And the short answer is you can't. Expectations are another word for desires.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and we recognize that desires are the cause of all of our unhappiness. We want the world to be in a particular way and we can't.
Yeah.
So we say, hey, let's give up desires. The short answer, Kristina, is you can't. You cannot give up desire. Let's say you're a smoker and you say, I'm going to quit smoking.
Yeah.
You can't give up the desire for smoking. The best you can do is say, okay, I will not indulge the desire. I will not smoke. But the desire for smoking will be there. Somebody lights up and you say, I wish I could have a cigarette. You might restrain yourself from doing it, but the desire is there.
Mm-hmm.
So the short answer, Kristina, is you cannot give up desire. Desire has to give you up. This is really important, so pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot give up desire. You cannot give up expectations. Expectations, desires have to give you up.
Oh, wow.
And what you can do is systematically work so that you become an environment hostile to the desire. And one day the desire will say, I'm not happy being here, and it will leave. And then you'll never be bothered by that again.
I need example.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was someone, one of the persons who had a profound influence on me is an Indian sage called Ramana Maharshi. He was an enlightened being regarded by many. There's a wonderful book about him called A Search in Secret India, written by Paul Brunton.
Mm-hmm.
And an example is somebody came up to Ramana Maharshi, and he came from an Orthodox Brahmin family. And he said, Bhagwan, I'm very, very drawn to eating meat. Now, in an Orthodox Brahmin situation, you don't eat meat. That's a strict no-no, you know.
Yeah.
But he said, I really like eating meat, and I can't give it up. So please help me. So
Mm.
Ramana said, there is no problem. Go ahead and eat meat. But every time before you eat meat, just think, I'm eating meat, and in the social situation which I'm in, this is supposed to be proscribed, and it's creating all kinds of problems in my social life and with my family.
Mm.
Just think about this is it, and just say, I wish I didn't have this desire to eat meat, and
Mm.
then go ahead and eat meat. And he said, oh boy, that's easy. I can do that.
Yeah.
So he went out and he did it religiously. Every time he eat meat, he said, I wish I didn't have that. And about a year or so later, he came to Bhagwan and said, Bhagwan, one day the desire to eat meat left me. And I've never eaten meat since that. And I don't even desire it anymore. The desire just left me.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much the way it works, Kristina. You cannot give up desire. Desire has to give you up.
Mm.
What you can do is be aware of the fact that desire is dictating you. And
Mm.
as you think about that, and as you make yourself a hostile environment for the desire, one
Mm.
day the desire will simply go.
So the
But
hostile
until then,
environment.
by all means, try to not indulge the desire, but
Uh-huh.
don't be too upset if the desire doesn't leave you, because it's the nature of desire.
Mm. And I'm the one who is the hostile environment for desire.
You make yourself the hostile environment. And one of the things that you can do, by the way, is to become aware of it. Recognize, Kristina, that desire is nothing but mental chatter.
Mm-hmm.
Mental chatter telling you, I want this. If I want this, I will be happy. This is needed. I like this. I love this. My life will be better if this was there. That's all mental chatter.
Mm-hmm.
So you can step back and observe your mental chatter. And when you observe your mental chatter, it doesn't have much power over you. Our problems arise because we don't observe our mental chatter. We become our mental chatter.
Mm-hmm.
And when we become our mental chatter, it takes you to all kinds of places you don't want to go, and we become unhappy and miserable and so on.
Mm.
But if we're in a position where we're observing our mental chatter rather than becoming our mental chatter, it has no power over us at all.
Is there any exercise or any technique to implement when you are being carried away by your mental chatter?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, the foundation exercise
Yeah.
in my programs is the mental chatter exercise. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll be very happy to share it with you, share it with your readers. It's a very powerful exercise. And this is not an exercise you do for a day or a week. This is a rest of your life exercise.
Uh-huh.
But if someone sincerely does it within a short time, within a month, you will notice a tremendous improvement in your life.
Uh-huh.
I'll be happy to share that with you.
Can we do it now, or is it something?
Absolutely.
Okay, yes, absolutely, yeah.
So here's what happens. Spend all your time observing your mental chatter. Even now, as we are speaking, there is mental chatter going on in your head. Is what he is saying true? Does it jibe with my experience? Will others be able to understand?
Mm-hmm.
All of that is mental chatter.
Mm-hmm.
You can step back and you can be, Kristina, some entity which is observing all of these thoughts rather than being identified with that. That's known as being the witness.
Mm-hmm.
And I advocate anchoring yourself in the witness. Remember earlier when I talked about you are okay, have always been okay, always will be okay. That's because you're anchored in the witness and seeing all of this stuff happening to this particular body, but you're not identifying with that.
Mm-hmm.
So mental chatter requires you being anchored in the witness, observing all of the stuff that's happening, and describe it impartially. Imagine that it's an invisible entity hanging over your head and in a completely neutral, non-judgmental tone, observing what is happening.
Mm-hmm.
Kristina is talking to Sri Kumar. Kristina is skeptical about what Sri Kumar is saying. Kristina is wondering how her audience, whatever the thoughts is, it's simply neutrally recording it. It's not passing judgment. It's not condemning. It's not praising. It's simply observing. With practice, you will be able to recognize the witness.
Mm-hmm.
With practice, it will be possible to anchor yourself in the witness. And as you do that, the ability of these thoughts to drag you to places you don't want to go vanishes. Kristina doesn't want to smoke. Kristina saw someone light up and she really, really, really wants a cigarette. And you're observing Kristina wanting to have a cigarette and noting it. Kristina is reaching for the cigarette. Kristina just remembers she's given up smoking, so she's pulling her hand back from the cigarette.
Mm-hmm.
Kristina says, what the hell, one cigarette won't hurt. So Kristina reaches for the cigarette. She lights it up. She takes a puff. Kristina is disgusted with herself for breaking down.
Mm-hmm.
So simply have all of that recorded.
So,
And the more you're the observer, the more you find that desires don't like you. And one fine day they up and leave, and then all of a sudden you're not bothered by it anymore.
mm-hmm. So I actually, rather than thinking something, oh, I feel this and that, I repeat it as if it's someone else, Kristina.
Exactly.
So I talk to myself in the third.
In the third person, exactly correct.
Mm-hmm. And when do you do that?
Exactly correct.
Do you do it the whole day, or do you do it in the moments when
you do it whenever and wherever you can? And don't say do it for the whole day, because this is a simple exercise. It's extremely difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And normally you start becoming the witness and you lose the witness in seconds, sometimes in minutes. Mm-hmm. Every time you lose your witness, come back to it. Gently, don't blame yourself. Just come back to it gently. And as you start doing it, you will find you get more and more practice. Let me give you an example.
Mm-hmm.
This is my smartphone.
Mm-hmm.
These are the alarm settings.
Ooh, interesting.
See how many there are.
Yeah.
Okay. I just set them up at random. Uh-huh. And every time it beeps, it's a immediate trigger to me to observe your mental chatter. Don't become your mental chatter. Mm-hmm. And I used to do that all the time. I set up 20, 25 times at random. And every time it beeps, I'd become aware of my mental chatter rather than be carried away by my mental chatter. If you start doing it long enough, you will be spending more time on the witness side rather than on the mental chatter side. That's how you start getting a handle on your desires and expectations.
So do you still do that because you have all those alarm clocks?
I've been doing it for a long time. So I have set up my alarm clock, so I do it, but I do it much more sporadically now because I've trained myself that anytime I'm getting got off or anytime I'm feeling overwhelmed, I immediately become a witness as opposed to being my mental chatter. Mm-hmm. I probably should be doing it more. So, now that we've had this honest conversation, I'll go back and try and actually do it formally. But I was doing it all the time early on, or in my earlier phase of life.
Mm-hmm. I think it's really interesting how we have to go back to the same practices over and over again. Yes. I think it's like with brushing teeth. No matter how much you brush them, you still have to keep brushing.
You have to still do it. That is exactly true. Remember what I said? This is a rest of your life exercise. It's not a 1 day or a 1 week exercise. But in a relatively short period of time, certainly within a month, if you do this exercise, you will notice a huge, huge, huge difference in how you experience your life. Mm-hmm. A massive difference.
I wanted to go back to some thought, which now I have unfortunately forgotten because we went into that exercise, and I guess Kristina's brain has taken her in a different direction. So we were talking about situations and expectations, and life throws things at us that we not necessarily want to have. What to do if you feel in a way you don't like to feel? Because you can observe, but you can still be uncomfortable with your feelings, let's say. And I'm talking about something maybe very very destructive to people, like be it shame or fear, or because this is something which a lot of the people have felt over the past few months. You can observe them, you can be a witness, but how do you work with that kind of things?
Here is something. What I'm teaching is very powerful and it absolutely works. But you need time, and you need to both embrace the idea intellectually and then start integrating it into your life, and that could take time. So in the meantime, if you're hit with something which is very painful, then, and I've dealt with, and I'm dealing with a lot of such situations now. There are marriages which are breaking up. There are relatives who have fallen ill. Some of them have actually died. And there's no way you can ever think of it as good. You know, this is obviously completely a tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we say there's no way you can think of it good, this is absolutely a tragedy. And this can be in personal situation when someone close to you, let's say a child dies, your child dies, or major historical tragedies like the Holocaust, the partition of India, the famine of Bengal, where millions of people died. So don't try to label this as bad, as good.
Mm-hmm.
Simply say, you know, because of my conditioning, because of where I am, there's no way I can think of it except as an unspeakable tragedy.
Mm.
So I'm going to wrap it up in cellophane and put it on the top shelf and say, someday, perhaps when I have greater understanding and spiritual growth, I can see the purpose of this. But for the time being, I can't, and this is evil, and I will treat it as such.
Mm.
But I can decide that I will not let my life be defined by this tragedy. I will grieve appropriately, but I will not let my life be defined by this, and I will carry on. That is something that you can do, and that's how I advocate people deal with it. So
Mm-hmm.
when you have that, just recognize, you know, I can't classify this as good. In my book, it is tragedy, but
Mm-hmm.
I will say that I will not let my life be defined by it. I will grieve appropriately, and then I will move on, and that is within your
Mm-hmm.
purview.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're faced with a situation like that, you look at it and you experience all of the feelings, but even as you're experiencing the feelings,
Mm-hmm.
you can be the witness as opposed to the person carried away.
Mm.
So someone close to you has died and you're really sorry, but you can observe yourself being sorry even as you're experiencing the feeling of being sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And as you do this for a while, you will both experience the sorrow and you will be able to let it go.
Mm-hmm. I think letting go and moving on are actually some of the most important, but also the toughest skills. Because as I keep saying, in theory, it's understandable, but when it comes to practice, we get carried away. We get drowned in the tsunami, not riding it.
Completely, that's true. That's because we haven't experienced or learned to surf on the 2-foot waves.
Mm-hmm.
When you haven't learned to surf on the 2-foot waves, the tsunami will inevitably drown you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have learned to surf on the 2-foot wave, there's a good chance that you'll be able to surf the tsunami.
Mm-hmm. And the 2-foot waves is everything that happens to our life.
Everyday life, yes.
Uh-huh. It's I really like talking to you because you make me you make me feel so much more at peace with things. So but I keep going back to unpleasant things because I think that's the true art of being happy is when you can be happy through the hard times. That's why I keep going back and trying to figure out how do you deal with that. So, are there any daily rituals or practices that you do to keep yourself in a good state to deal with whatever life throws at you? And what is the good state? Can you define what are we aspiring for?
Once again, Kristina, I'd like to stress that aspiring for it is really not a good way to define it.
Uh-huh.
Because aspiring for it means there's something out there that I think is desirable and I have to go out and get it. It's not there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying that this state that I'm talking about is yours. You don't have to acquire it, you just have to recognize it.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the ways in which you recognize it is by being mindful of what you're doing at any given instant.
Mm-hmm.
We have a habit of obsessing about the destination.
Mm-hmm.
And when you obsess about the destination, you miss the journey. And the journey is the only thing you have. The journey is with you always. The destination is a mirage. You get there, you tarry a few minutes, and then you're off someplace else. The journey is the only thing you have, and the journey is with you always. And when you obsess about the destination, you miss the journey. You know, people say, I want to climb Mount Everest. How much time do you spend on top of Mount Everest? A few minutes to a half hour max. You get up there, your buddy takes a picture of you, your buddy gets up there, you take a picture of him, and then you're on your way down and you hope you don't get killed in an avalanche.
Yeah.
So if you're going to climb Mount Everest, you better enjoy the weeks and months of acclimatization on base camp 1, base camp 2, and so on, correct? Works the same way in life. You want to accomplish something, you try your level best to accomplish. If you do, fantastic. If you don't, fantastic. Because the mistake we make, Kristina, is we think that the purpose of setting a goal and trying our level best to achieve the goal is achieving the goal.
Yeah.
Wrong. Whether or not you actually achieve the goal is totally beyond your control. Any of a number of factors could. You know, my wife and I are tremendous tennis fans. We go to the US Open every year. We've been to the French Open numerous times. 2 years ago, went to the Australian Open. This year, we were going to Wimbledon, and I, bought tickets from Wimbledon last year. And now we're not going to Wimbledon.
Obviously.
And I would never have imagined that I would not, if somebody had said, you can't go to Wimbledon, I said, yeah, maybe. And I'd have thought, maybe I fell ill or somebody fell ill as a result of which I can't. But I never imagined I wouldn't go to Wimbledon because Wimbledon was cancelled and there would be no flights to go to London and I'd be quarantined at home.
Yeah.
Unexpected stuff happens all the time. So you can never be sure that you'll accomplish your goal. So the benefit of setting a goal and trying your level best to achieve it are the learning and growth that happen in you and to you as you try your level best to achieve the goal. If you actually achieve the goal, that's a bonus. Be grateful. If you don't achieve the goal, the learning and growth have already happened, so you're ahead of the game. So a practical tip, and this is a hugely powerful tip, it works in personal situations, in professional situations, is invest in the process, do not invest in the outcome. Whatever you're doing, do it. Anytime you dislike something because your mental chatter is going, why do I have to do this? I don't really want to do this. It is very, very painful. I'd rather be doing something else. I wish I didn't have to do it. It's all your mental chatter. But if you can recognize it, and instead of doing that, you focus on what it is that you're doing, you will find that you are more at ease and whatever you need to get done happens. There's a big pile of dishes in the sink and you hate doing dishes. So you say, oh my God, there's a big pile. Why is it there? I don't want to do that. I want to watch my favorite soap opera. I want to watch television. There's a big game on. Why do I have to do this? I don't like doing it. It's your mental chatter telling you that. But you become the witness and you observe the mental chatter, and then you just start washing the dishes and you feel the soap on your skin or your gloves, and you start the warmth of the water and you start cleaning the dishes. And then all of a sudden you find it's not that distasteful after all, or even pleasant. So let me leave your listeners with a very profound statement. The purpose of washing dishes is not to get them clean. The purpose of washing dishes is to wash the dishes. This is actually very profound, and I invite them to think about it. The purpose of washing dishes is not to get them clean. The purpose of washing dishes is to wash the dishes. It's a Zen statement, but it has deep meaning.
Thank you for saying that, because I actually just recently experienced an interesting transformation. For years, I've been known as a person who dislikes cooking. And then when the quarantine happened in Malaysia, I lost the lady who used to do groceries and cook for me, because she had to, for health issues, she had to go back to Russia, where she was from, and she couldn't come back. So I was stuck with a new chore I had not enjoyed doing all my life. And I suddenly realized it's for a long time. And, I did, maybe because I heard you sharing that story about dishes before, but I figured I have to learn to enjoy cooking. So now I put on the music. I confess I have a glass of wine and I dance as I cook. And I actually started looking forward to those moments of partying with myself and my veggies.
So you know what I'm sharing with you works.
So last time I heard it, it was still theoretical, but now I know what you're talking about. And I heard also somewhere that anticipation of an event is actually more pleasurable than an event itself.
Mhm.
And there is a risk of when you are on top of Mount Everest, that you'll be like, what was that about? So thank you for this very deep thought, because I think it really is a game changer. It really changes everything about.
Absolutely. Yes, it does.
Yeah, but I want to, before we finish, I want to ask this. I have to ask this because psychologists say that for us to not fall into depression, we need to have goals. And we were just talking about goals, and the purpose of the goal is not actually reaching it, but the journey to the goal. And a lot of people right now, because of uncertainty, have lost the ability to set the goals. Do you have any suggestions for people who are lost, for whom uncertainty was the tsunami, and now they don't know what they want to aspire for, because we don't even know when we'll get to travel? Like, some people have lost jobs, have lost everything, and solution is not coming anytime soon yet. So do you have any suggestions for people who are lost, how to find this this desire for living, this desire to dream? People unlearn even the simple thing. I don't know what to want. I don't know what to dream about.
I've run into that situation and exactly that question many times, Kristina, right now. In fact, there are persons applying for my course who say, I don't even know what I want anymore. Yeah. And the short answer is, and this is very difficult, I grant you, because it comes from a completely different perspective and a frame of life. If you don't know what you want, that's a wonderful situation. Don't get into the trap of wanting something. So if you're liberated and you don't know what you want, that's wonderful. Just say, this is beautiful. I am not going to eliminate all my wants. I don't want it. Because here is the thing, Kristina, and here's my view of life. The only thing you ever do in life is you work on yourself. If you're a wife, if you're a mother, if you're a daughter, you deal with your husband, you deal with your children, you deal with your parents, and you try to be the best daughter you can, the best wife you can be, the best mother you can be. But in the process of doing that, what you're actually doing is you're working on yourself. You have a company, you're building your company, you want to do the very best you can for your customers, for your employees. In the process of doing that, you're working on yourself. The only thing you ever do in life is work on yourself. And your children, and your husband, and your parents, and your company, your customers, your employees, they're all tools given to you by the universe, and you use these tools skillfully. But as you use these tools skillfully, what you're really doing is you're working on yourself. So for people who are stuck in their home, who may have lost their job, who don't know what is happening, this is a situation that the universe has given you to work on yourself. And you're going to use it as skillfully as you can, and you're going to live each day anchored in the feeling of well-being. And from that feeling of well-being, you're still going to go out. You need income, so you're going to see what you can do to job. What is it that you can do from home? What is it that you can do in the circumstances they are? You're going to use your life experience and whatever contacts you have and so on to solve the problem. But even in those circumstances, you can solve those or try to solve those problems or address those issues from the emotional domain of I am okay. It's very easy to get knocked out of that domain, but you get knocked out of that domain because you have this insistent expectation that the universe unfold in the way in which you would like it to, and it never does. There's always a variation between the way you would like it to and the way it actually does. And this is true at every level.
Thank you. It's amazing. Thank you again for sharing your wisdom. I always enjoyed listening to you, and I wish I could do that more.
So, you can do that more. All you got to do is call up Jackie, set up a time, and we can chat.
Yeah, we should do that. So thank you so much. I know it's pre-recorded, but it will be watched by people. So I'm going to traditionally ask you guys to leave a heart for Sri Kumar for being so generous and so wise and so kind, and for injecting me with this peace and contentment and enjoyment. Just listening to you, it makes me feel better. So thank you very much for that. And I hope that the world is going to open up again, and we'll meet again in real life. And
I'm sure we will.
And enjoy
This will
the
not
journey.
last forever.
Yes, enjoy the journey.
Thank you.
Thank you, and bye bye, everyone. See you next week, hopefully.